As a certified Epic Games hater, I really love seeing engines other than the overrated slop that is the Unreal Engine get positive mainstream attention, and you may say that's petty, to which I would say yes. It's not that the Unreal Engine is a bad piece of tech, or that it's not impressive, but rather I find it obnoxious that the industry has been hoisting up this engine that can rarely provide a stutter-free gameplay experience, while other engines like Capcom's RE engine and id Software's id Tech have proven to be much more stable during gameplay while still providing amazing visual quality. Not as amazing visual quality, but as gamers, shouldn't gameplay be the priority? And the reason I bring all of this up is because it looks like Indiana Jones and the Big Sphere are about to set us back 10 years because Bethesda released the PC specs, and they are some of the most gobbledygook nonsense I've seen from one of these spec sheets in quite some time. And this is extra frustrating because id Tech is one of the engines that I'm always hoisting up as a counter to those who say the Unreal Engine should be like industry standard. Id Tech is incredible. Every id Tech game of the last like 10-15 years has been almost unreasonably well optimized, and obviously optimization isn't exclusive to the engine, and a bad engine can theoretically be well optimized. But my point is that when you look at the history of the id Tech engine, you see a pattern of visually impressive and very gameplay focused experiences that tend to have smooth performance on every platform. Now let's take a look at the spec sheet for Indiana Jones. Mateys, it's not looking good. And like, I don't want to put too much stock into PC spec sheets like this when it comes to game performance, because obviously there's arguments to be made on both sides of that coin in terms of how consistently an alarming spec sheet like this actually leads to poor optimization. Like, I'm not trying to argue that there's a 100% connection between a wacky PC spec sheet and a game's bad optimization, but I mean, there's some connection between those things. Some might argue there's quite a lot of connection between those things, but let's just look through this together and we'll get to the bottom of my concern and annoyance here at a developer who has been incredibly consistent over the years with not doing stuff like this, but there I go again, expecting AAA gaming to put any effort into even acting like they still care about prioritizing how games play over how they look. Also, hilariously, Bethesda had to issue a correction image a few hours after this initial image came out. So we're going to look at the second version of the spec chart, not that it really makes much of a difference because this thing's a train wreck either way. The second version is just a slightly better spelled train wreck. Okay, so there's two charts here. There's the standard rendering requirements and there's full ray tracing requirements. So we'll start at the bottom of the bottom. Like, what is the absolute lowest minimum system requirements that they list here? Minimum settings in standard rendering requirements. And what's that at the bottom? GPU hardware ray tracing required. So the ray tracing is off, but you still need required ray tracing to run the no ray tracing mode? Who did this? Todd, did you write this? Let's just go look up here. So minimum specs with no ray tracing, we're looking at goody, a i7. An Intel i7 or an AMD Ryzen 5 3600. Several questions. The main one being why. There is no fucking reason you should need something like an i7 to run a game like this at the bare minimum. This is not a gigantic open world game with NPCs everywhere. It's an Indiana Jones game. A pretty Indiana Jones game, but an Indiana Jones game nonetheless. Like, how CPU demanding can a game like this even be? There's not that much going on. Minimum memory, 16 gigs of RAM. Oh goody gumdrops, I'm excited for how non-stuttery this thing will be. Graphics, minimum graphics. A GeForce RTX 2060 Super or a Radeon RX 6600. I admit I'm not an AMD expert. I admit I've been an Nvidia boy since the beginning of my PC gaming years. I'm going to change that next time it's time to upgrade my graphics card. But I admit that I am not the biggest expert on AMD cards. But looking at this, AMD bros, am I wrong in thinking these are not really equivalent for this? Am I being too harsh here? Or are these cards really not that equivalent to each other in the context of a minimum spec sheet? I will leave that for your discussion, but probably the dumbest part of this entire sheet, we're gonna keep going by the way, but the dumbest part so far is 120 gigabytes of storage, by the way. This game is fucking gigantic. 120 gigabytes for this. I'm just gonna throw some other sizes of games up here just so we can really have a proper funeral for the idea of file compression. Here's the file size for GTA 5. Here's the file size for Red Dead 2. Here's the file size for Just Cause 4. Here's the file size for Arkham Knight. Here's the file size for The Witcher 3. Here's the file size for Doom Eternal. Here's the file size for Cyberpunk. But let's just say you want to run this game at recommended specs without ray tracing. That's the next one I want to focus on because that's usually like the most common one that people are looking at on stuff like this. Recommended specs, what do we got? What's changed? Well, they now want you to have a more powerful i7 or now a Ryzen 7, no longer a Ryzen 5. We went from Ryzen 5 3600 to Ryzen 7 7700. You know, remember what I said earlier about how things just don't really seem all that equivalent to each other? Oh, and by the way, SSDs are required across the board here. You have to have an SSD to run this game. Why? What's the point? Go down to the graphics card here, an RTX 3080 Ti or RX 7700 XT. You want a 3080 Ti for this. And what are the targets here, by the way? This is for high graphics at 1440p 60. You want an RTX 3080 Ti for this. Todd, look me in the eyeballs. Oh, if you think that's dumb, I want to go ahead and zoom back out here and zoom on in to minimum ray tracing requirements. And if you go down to the bottom here, this is with frame generation, okay? With frame generation, low graphics, ray tracing on, a 4070. You want a 4070 to even turn on ray tracing. And notice how they don't even give AMD equivalents for this section. Once you turn on ray tracing, there's no AMD card suggestions. Want to know why? Oh, because if you go down there, they're talking about all of these with DLSS. So these specs are specifically if you have DLSS turned on. So they expect you to play this game with DLSS basically with no exceptions, at least if you want to play with ray tracing. So that doesn't bode well for the game's actual optimization if you're relying on DLSS to fix your problems. So that means in these PC requirements, in these what to expect cards, you literally don't know what to expect because they won't tell you what to expect once you turn on ray tracing unless you have DLSS turned on. And also if you have an AMD card, go fuck yourself. Basically. Boy, oh boy, I love it when console exclusivity weasels its way on into my PC gaming. And also, are you really telling me minimum settings with ray tracing turned on, the only way you can promise a 60 FPS target is with frame generation? How garbage is this thing gonna run without it? You can't even promise 60 FPS with minimum settings on a 4070? What are we doing here? This is not an open world game. It's just a pretty looking linear single player game. How have optimization standards fallen this far? Yeah, we're pausing it right here to do a nice little Doofus Club shout out. If you want to join the Doofus Club, it's only 99 cents a month and you get emotes and you get a little badge next to your name and you get a little shout out in all the videos because I shout out the Doofus Club in every video. Okay, so the Doofus Club as of December 5th is Jody Breeze, Mr. Techno Squeak, Max Lurel Maximus, Where Is Your Power Armor, Furry Raptor 1, Schnorlaxin, Maddie Plays, Diego Garcia, McAdvertisement, Dunkle's Omen, Wild Gamer 3001, Demetrius, Popo Gisho, Gibbikins, American Idiot, Boofner, Antwain Horton, Rebel Blood 80, Stefan Christensen, Stefan Christensen. Where the fuck was I getting the F from? All Games Vidya, Your Oracle Dakota, Ryan McCardle, Raven Bloodrot, Henthai, Justin Mab, Ranroy, Stoico, Hero Culture, Luke Bayless, Bloodline, Extreme the Wolf 7, Tooney, Wayne, Gaming with Dead People, Jotaku, Puddintain, Joey Scoops, Jidge, Totally Not Retro, Westa, Wannabe, Hobo, Master of Nothing, Billet, 310 Char, Geeks, Tar, Veg, Rob C, Curtin, Allen, Spat, Crumpet, Kun, The Scrum Master, The Groovy Banana. Oh my goodness, holy golly. Okay, if you want to join the Doofus Club, me and the Doofus Club shoutouts, let's just go join the Doofus Club. Okay, let's go back to Bethesda nonsense. Bye. So a few things are really annoying about this spec sheet. Like there's a couple things about this chart that really bug me, and they're the reasons I wanted to make this video in the first place. First of all, it's just throwing away optimization standards even further for AAA games, and really just smashing home that if you don't have a mega supercomputer that can run poorly optimized, super pretty games with no gameplay refinement or frame rate optimization, you know, in a video game, something you're supposed to be interacting with in real time. We're just not prioritizing the actual real-time interaction anymore. We just want it to look pretty. And if you have a machine built for games to run well instead of looking pretty, you can eat shit with a spoon, basically, is what we're saying. And Machine Games is usually so much better at this. But I mean, the second thing that this is going to do, and I'm 100% convinced this is intentional to some degree, is it's going to give some ammo to people who genuinely think a console is a better investment as a gaming machine than a PC, or it's going to feed into people's delusions about how powerful these consoles actually are. You know, the people who are saying like, hey, the PS5 Pro is a $40,000, $900,000 card, and it's only $700. This is just going to feed into narratives like that. Because if you're really invested in the Indiana Jones game and you want a smooth gameplay experience and you're or at least the smoothest gameplay for the least amount of money possible, you're going to look at the spec sheet and then go play it on Xbox, or go buy an Xbox instead of buying a PC, or engaging with PC gaming, despite the fact that the PC is overall a better gaming platform for 10 million reasons I've already discussed in a bunch of other videos. And you don't even have to take my word for it, because the PC gaming market is growing while the console market is completely stagnant and has been. So thanks for that, Bethesda. This chart is just going to feed into those narratives even more, which again, my conspiracy is that is 100% intentional to some degree. But God, just reading this spec chart, I had to go back to the Wikipedia page for the Indiana Jones game and double check this wasn't some kind of giant like open world game, because there's no reason a game of this size should be this demanding to run on an engine like id Tech, which has shown many times to be perfectly capable of great graphics and great performance at the same time. What happened here? I don't get it. I don't understand what was to be gained by putting so little effort into the optimization of this game, because that's really what this comes down to. This is 100% an optimization problem, because again, this engine has proven itself many times to be perfectly capable of stuff like this with far lower specifications. But somewhere along the line, somebody decided that the graphics need to be cranked up, the lighting needs to be super cranked up, the ray tracing needs to be required, because again, even if you're playing this game without ray tracing, you still need ray tracing. Thanks for that. Somewhere along the line, that order came along, and this is what we ended up with. I really hope you prove me wrong, Bethesda, Machine Games, Microsoft. I really hope you prove me wrong and this game comes out and it's just like buttery smooth. We know it's not going to be that way. Please prove me wrong, guys. I'm losing it. Okay, toodles.